Welcome to the Broadway Mentors Program podcast. Our host today is Ron Boehmer. In a career spanning 25 years in Broadway productions, Ron has starred as the Phantom in The Phantom of the Opera, Joe Gillis in Sunset Boulevard, Alex in Aspects of Love, Enjolras in Les Miserables, Fiedka in Fiddler on the Roof, Coach Bolton in Disney's High School Musical, Sir Percival Glyde in The Woman in White, as the Scarlet Pimpernel, as Father in Ragtime, and most recently as Jesus and Joseph Smith in The Book of Mormon. Ron's latest recording, Legacy, is now streaming on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple Music. Here is Ron Boehmer.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Broadway Mentors Program podcast. I'm Ron Boehmer. I'm hosting today's episode, and we have a fantastic episode for you. And when I say fantastic, I'm spelling that with a PH because we are phantom-centric today. Joy Lober Anderson is the creator and one of the many great mentors with the Broadway Mentors Program. And when she created this, when I came on board with Broadway Mentors, she said, you know, you're the third Phantom that we have on here. And she thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a conversation with the three of you, to have the three of you talking and sharing your experiences with the show? And she said, you know, I'd love it if you would host something like that for a podcast. And I just immediately freaked out because I'm such huge fans of the other two mentors in the program who happen to be phantoms. Of all of the mentors, they're all brilliant, but these two phantoms, they unknowingly have been mentors to me my entire career as I just watched their performances, listened to their recordings, and was like, man, I don't know what they're doing. I got to figure it out, though, because they're doing it right. So I'm really excited to have these guys on today. Let me tell you a little bit briefly about my Phantom journey. I played the Phantom in the Rao Company, which was the first national tour. I was hired to close out that tour, and I played it through almost the entire last year of that company. We played Los Angeles, we played Washington, D.C., we played Chicago, nice long sit-downs in all those cities and a couple other cities as well. And during that time, I met and ultimately fell in love with the leading lady who is pictured here. This is Sandra Joseph, who is the longest-running Christine in Broadway history. So that was a pretty cool thing to have happen in my Phantom life. Let me introduce you to my guests today on this program, our other incredible phantoms. So first of all, I want to start with this gentleman here who won the 1993 Tony Award for Best Supporting Actor in the musical Kiss of the Spider-Woman. He has received 2 Dora nominations, 2 Joe Jefferson Award nominations. He's received a Carbonell Award for the Broadway musical The News. Mr. Crivello starred on Broadway in Evita, the original Broadway production of Les Miserables, Measure for Measure at Lincoln Center, and also at Lincoln Center, Marie Christine. He has acted in over 50 plays across the country in major regional theaters, as well as in London and Canada. His films include Emmerich's Trade with Kevin Kline and Independence Day with Will Smith. Now, he returned to Broadway in 2012 as Eddie Fusilli in the Lincoln Center's Golden Boy, and in 2014, he starred off Broadway in Heathers the Musical. Now, here's the good stuff for our podcast today. From 2006 to 2012, he starred as the Phantom in Andrew Lloyd Webber's $35 million production of The Phantom of the Opera at the Venetian Hotel and Casino, directed by Hal Prince, of course, for which he has garnered outstanding reviews and praise. It ran for close to 6.5 years, and Mr. Crivello portrayed the Phantom from the opening night until the closing curtain in Las Vegas for a total of more than 2,300 performances. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anthony Crivello. There he is. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Ron.
Hi, Anthony Crivello. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So excited to have you here. Where's home for you?
I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Fantastic. And I happen to be coming from San Diego, so we're both West Coasters. We're the West Coast Phantom representers.
And I'm sure, we bounce around to wherever the work and career take us. So
that is true. We do, absolutely. I want to introduce everybody now to our next Phantom. And this Phantom, let me pull up his introduction here. You may recognize that photo there. That's my favorite photo of this particular Phantom, is Howard McGillin. Howard has appeared extensively in leading roles on Broadway and London's West End. Leading roles included Gigi, The Kiss of the Spider-Woman, She Loves Me, The Secret Garden, Anything Goes, for which he was nominated for a Tony and a Drama Desk, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which I think I saw about 60 times from standing room, Sunday in the Park with George. On the West End, he played Howard. Howard starred in the acclaimed revival of Mac and Mabel and recreated his role there in Anything Goes. He was nominated for a Drama Desk for his debut in the New York Shakespeare Festival production of La Bohème opposite Linda Ronstadt. Come on. He most recently appeared in Charles Busch's world premiere of his play The Confession of Lily Dare in New York. He starred regionally in Stephen Sondheim and John Weidman's musical Bounce. Directed also by Harold Prince, the Goodman Theater in Chicago, where they played that, also at the Kennedy Center in D.C., where he was nominated for a Helen Hayes Award. TV, he's appeared on The Blacklist, he's appeared on The Good Wife and Elementary, in addition to narrating numerous episodes of the show Nature for PBS. His solo CD, which I actually have and adore, is Howard McGillin, Where Time Stands Still, and that is still available on CDBaby.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Howard McGillin. Howard McGillin.
Hey, Ron.
How are you, man?
Good. How are you, Tony? How are you, Ron?
I'm very good, Howard. Thank you.
Hey,
and
it's
you as well.
So good to see you guys. All right, here we go. The three Phantoms right there in one shot all together. So, guys, we got so much ground to cover here, so let's just dive in. First of all, it's COVID time, so the first thing I want to ask you, let's start with you, Anthony. How are you doing? How's everything?
Okay, it is. I'm experiencing what so many people across the country are experiencing, and I have two children who are 11 and 14 years old, and they're doing distance learning, and so it has been a challenge, to put it mildly. It's better than it was at the tail end of last year when they had a school year. Because there was different things that were implemented to try and make improvements, but it's still a difficult proposition, for all of us, just socially, missing friends, missing family, but we all have to do our part to deal with this pandemic. And until we can find solutions, and hopefully, God willing, these vaccines will work, we're just trying to hang in there. And it's also, I'm sure, for everyone. It is on the negative side. It has changed the dynamics of how we work, and when and where we will work. And on the positive side, what it has done is it's created platforms like this Zoom platform and the usage thereof, this particular internet platform that we're using today. And it's helped people to reach out and find alternative ways of doing their art. And so that has been a wonderful byproduct of what's going on.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how art continues to thrive and survive, regardless of really challenging circumstances for the entire planet right now. So I'm glad you're well. You look great.
So thanks. You look pretty handsome yourself.
Well, thank you, buddy. You look pretty fantastic. Howard, I want to ask you the same question. How is it going in New York? How are you doing?
It's going okay. I mean, I echo a lot of what Tony said. It's just been a really, really tough slog for the theater, for every actor, everybody involved in the theater, from backstage to center stage. And it has been really, really tough to keep our spirits up and to keep active and to keep, I've dedicated myself to learning Italian during the last 9 months.
Amazing.
I don't know how much closer I am to actually speaking it fluently, but I'm picking some up, and I'm learning a little piano as well, which is something I've always wanted to do. But it's everything's kind of on pause in a way for so many of us. I was very happy to be asked to be a part of a Tick Tick Boom, the movie. That is just wrapped in New York. So I actually got a couple of days on a film, but other than that, it's been pretty bleak. I've been able to teach as well. I teach at NYU as well as for Broadway mentors, and
All virtually,
that's
correct?
been all virtually. And it has. I was kind of thinking about what Tony said about the kind of reinvention of our craft through Zoom, and how much innovation has been going on with this platform. I mean, some of the productions that I've seen from the NYU undergrads has been phenomenal.
Wow.
In terms of what they've done. So that's been kind of exciting. That's kind of the upside of all this, has been to see how people have adapted and kind of molded this new platform to tell stories. It's been fantastic that way.
Yeah, it's my therapist actually used the metaphor a while back ago about it's sort of like when you see a dandelion growing out of a crack in the sidewalk. You know, it's like he said, art is like that. It's just going to find a way, and it's going to continue to thrive and survive.
Ron, I ask you the same question. How are you doing?
Oh, thanks. Thank you for asking that, Anthony. Good. I mean, I think the best news of all of it is that even though COVID has touched a few members of my family, luckily everyone's recovered from it, and is good, is healthy, and got their sense of smell and taste and all of that back as well. So, that's good news that they're faring well with that. It's been strange. I mean, I was literally performing the Book of Mormon in Los Angeles when COVID hit and we were shut down. And the tour was scheduled to close in August anyway, but it basically just came to an abrupt end right then, which was sad. It kind of is like with everybody. I think we've all been left with this sense of, that your life has been put on hold, But within that, new things have been happening. I've been doing, some radio musicals and things like that. I have a podcast musical. There's 1 Million Musicals. Has a show called The South Pole Santa Claus coming up very soon, which I play the narrator, a la Burl Ives in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, that kind of thing, and also get to sing some swing, Michael Bublé-esque, Frank Sinatra-esque kind of music, which is cool. So and we've been doing virtual concerts too, using technology and figuring it out. So, but the best part of all it is we're healthy. I was on the road for 7.5 years with Book of Mormon, and for the first time since we've owned our home in San Diego, Sandra and I are actually living here together for an extended period of time. So that's been great,
Yeah.
But thank you for
fantastic.
asking that. So let's dive back into Phantom Land. All right, give me. Let's start with you, Howard. Give me the nutshell version of how you won the role.
Well, I wanted, like most people, win roles. It's a funny way to express it, but I know it's true. You go in and just like every other job I've ever gotten, with a few exceptions, I actually had to audition for it. And Hugh Pinero was leaving the show to go off to do a new show, Martin Guerre, and Hal called. I had done Kiss of the Spider Woman, which I'd love to talk with Tony about at some point. I'm sure maybe we'll get to it.
Yeah,
we share we share that show, but not the same production. We share the same production, but not the same timing of it.
Right.
I went in after Tony had left. Unfortunately, I missed the chance to work with Tony on that. But
same here.
But I had worked with Hal, and when Hugh left to do the new show, he asked if I would come in, and I walked in and sang Music of the Night, and David Caddick said, I think we're going to be talking to you. So that was a very nice outcome.
Oh, I love it when it goes that way. That's, you wish every audition was like that, don't you? Where they just go, I think we'll be talking to you. In David Caddick's nice British accent, I think we'll be talking to you.
Yes.
Great. Anthony, how about you? Tell me about your journey to the Las Vegas Phantom Spectacular.
Here's a long, winding story. I'll try to say it quickly and succinctly. And it's actually involved and interesting. At the tail end of when I was leaving Kiss of the Spider Woman, Hal said to me, you know what, Tony, somewhere along the line, we've got to get you playing the Phantom. And I said, terrific. I would love that opportunity. And so kept it in mind. And over the course of the next several years, there was some recasting, and that was done on Broadway and etc. And I would fire off a note to Hal and to Artie Masala, and I that said we'll keep it in mind, looking for the right opportunity, and but didn't hear anything. And then what happened was there was an announcement that there was a replacement going to be happening on Broadway, and they were going to launch a brand new company to go in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And the Las Vegas production was going to be new conceptually, and there was going to be 10 performances a week under what's called a casino contract, which means that the entire production had to run 95 minutes and with no intermission.
Wow.
So I was going to, I thought, well, I'll send Hal Prince I'll send Hal an email just saying, hey, I'd like to see if we could consider this again, if you would consider it again. At the time, I've been for years. He just passed away. My dear friend, the multiple Tony Award and Olivia Award lighting designer Hal Binkley.
Oh.
Who had done after Kiss had done show after show after show with Hal. And so I mentioned it to Hal, and he said, "Oh, no, brother, you have to write Hal's old school. You know how he writes to all of us and returns, letters."
Yes,
and he said,
absolutely.
"You must write him a letter again." So I wrote him a letter, and he responded. Had to do the same thing. Had to go through an audition process. Had to fly to New York. I think it was 2 or 3 times. And the final audition happened, and which I thought went really well. But the deciding panel was very quiet. And so I thought, oh my God, I've come this far and it's not going to happen. And so I went and had dinner with a friend of mine, called my wife and told her that I didn't have a good feeling about it. And the next morning, I left the hotel and jumped in a cab. When I was in the cab, I got a phone call. And the phone call was from Hal's office. And so I thought, oh, he's calling me to say, gee, kid, thank you for coming in. It's not going to work this time, blah, blah, blah. And so this, it was in his office, Dan in his office. And he said, Tony, just wait 1 second. Hal's going to get on with you. And I said, okay. And he gets on. And Tony? And I said, yes, Hal. And he said, well, kid, looks like we're going to be working together again. And I said, are you kidding me? I thought it was a done deal and I was gone. He goes, oh, no. All that side guy said everybody was so quiet. And he said, no. I had to, quickly go put you through your paces. And then when you left, then out of the room, then I turned to the producers and I say, okay, this is the guy that I want. I think that, yeah. And it was an interesting proposition. That company initially as well, because we had 10 performances, it was double cast.
It's a lot.
Phantom, Carlotta, and Christine. So, there were a lot of bodies that were involved, and it was a really sort of, as you said in the introduction, $35 million. It was actually a $40 million production, and that was the original producer had. The two producers were Base Entertainment and Live Net, I think it is, or Live Entertainment. And then Live Entertainment decided that they no longer wanted to be involved in performance and that they were going to do rock concerts and own venues. So they sold their half of their investment to Base Entertainment and based at a discount of $5 million, which then made it a $35 million investment for Base Entertainment.
Wow.
So, but originally $40 million investment inside a specially built $40 million theater that was built at the Venetian Hotel Casino specifically for that production.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
And I did see the production. Unfortunately, you were out the night that I saw it, so I didn't get to see your performance as the Phantom, but I've heard so many incredible rave reviews about it. And the physical production was just spectacular. What a journey to be a part of that amazing thing. Quickly, my capsule story of all of this, but I used to call Phantom, going in for Phantom was my 6-month checkup because I auditioned for it so many times. And it was always usually for Rahl, and then all of a sudden something switched and they started seeing me for the Phantom, and I would go in and I would sing on the majestic stage, for Hal Prince and all the people out in the dark, and they would say thank you, and I would leave, and that would be the end of that. And finally, the show was going back to Los Angeles, and Davis Gaines had a huge success as the Phantom, finishing out the run in LA when it had been there, and then continuing on, I think, to San Francisco as well. And he didn't want to do it again, and they were sort of looking for somebody in that vein, and I was playing Joe Gillis in Sunset Boulevard on the national tour of that. And I guess the best way to describe it is I just fit the suit. I think I was what they finally were looking for.
I don't know about that.
So
yeah, I got that.
You got to have the goods.
Well, thank you for that. But I would, like I say, I would always sing Music of the Night, and I would hear thank you, and for years that happened, and finally this time I sang Music of the Night, and I hear in the darkness, oh, that was swell. And as you guys both know, that was Hal, because when Hal really liked something, he would say swell. That was, his vernacular, and I always remember him so fondly with that word. And I actually just, while we're talking about it, I wanted to see if I could pull up. Oh, that's not the one I wanted to do. That's coming later. Here's some pictures. I'm sorry this is covering your face, Anthony. I couldn't get it to move.
I'll lean a little bit further.
Yeah. So this is Sandra and I with Hal, actually rehearsing the show in New York before we went to Los Angeles. And tell us about this photo here, Anthony.
Photo with associate director Artie Masala, and then Hal in the middle, and myself in makeup in a performance. And Hal is holding my son, who newly born son at the time.
Wow.
And a little sidetrack, and we all know this happens with so many shows. You become part of a family.
Yeah.
And you take on the dynamics of a family, including births, deaths, and the weather. And so my son was the first of 27 babies that were born during that 6.5-year run of Phantom of the Opera in Las Vegas.
Wow. It's, when you do a show, when you do any show at all, it becomes your family. It becomes your surrogate family. It becomes, and then with a show like that, it becomes your village, because it's so many people involved. Oh, that's gorgeous. That's just a beautiful, beautiful photograph. And Howard, tell us about this one.
Well, I love this photo so much because it just, without seeing my face, you can tell the affection that I felt for this man.
Absolutely.
He when Tony was talking about Hal saying to you, you should play Phantom. He had that kind of loyalty for each of us and for every one of his actors that he loved. Yeah. He had such loyalty and a sense of love for the actors that he enjoyed working with. Yeah. I'm not going to say he loved every actor, but this man. So this was, I think, the 35th anniversary of Phantom. There was a big gala in New York, and I had left Phantom. I was not in Phantom at the time, but we all came to see the show and kiss the rings of the fantastic creative team. But it was such an amazing experience, but it reminded me what Tony was saying, what you were saying, Ron, about Hal never giving up on an actor. We were doing a show, Stephen Sondheim's Bounce, in Washington. It was the end of the road for Bounce. It was not going forward. We'd had some bad reviews, and
that's so hard.
And it looked like, we'd reached the end of the line. And Hal came and knocked on my dressing room door on the final night. And he came in and he sat down in my dressing room and he said, now, I understand that something about Hugh Pinero had come back to Phantom. And they had just hired you just like a week before Bounce took a nosedive. And he said to me, I just want you to know that I'm sorry about the timing of all this as how it affects you, but I want you to know that I would love to have you come back. And indeed I did.
Wow.
He asked me to come back.
Yeah.
That's the kind of great guy he was. And I miss him every day. I think he's just what an amazing icon in our business, but also his love for his family, as we put it before, was intense and steadfast.
Yeah. Hal Prince, the late,
I couldn't agree
great
with
director.
Howard more about Hal and how his loyalty and how he provided opportunity after opportunity for actors and designers and budding directors. And I mean, how many careers he helped to nurture, and the support that he would give to people, and I think for all of us, I hear these stories that both of you are talking about, how many opportunities he gave to each of us.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I mean, and I'm sure we would all echo the same thing. We owe a huge portion of our lives, especially our creative lives, to Hal Prince, without a doubt.
No question.
Yeah, without question. He's
Such
just
a beautiful man.
So admired and loved and greatly missed. All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts of playing this part. All right, let's talk about it. So for me, this is probably the most difficult role that I have ever done. And I think certainly also the most rewarding. But for me, and I've been lucky enough to do some pretty big roles, like Joe Gillis is a marathon in Sunset Boulevard. The Scarlet Pimpernel is a marathon. These are, and you guys too, you've done these roles where you're really working hard, but there's something about this one that was really, really the toughest. I had a very kind of cinematic idea about this character and how to play this character. And I say cinematic because it was probably meant to be shot on film and then not done again, as opposed to being done 8 times a week, which was, which is hard. And that's the gig, is to do it 8 times a week. And I found it, really, really exhausting. And I found it's the kind of role where you really don't have much of a life while you're doing the role. You pretty much just have to keep yourself ready to do this, show. So talk to me. Let's start with you, Howard. Let's talk about your experience of playing the role and managing the workload. And both of you, I did the show for a year, and after a year, I was like, thank you, I'm done, thank you. I don't mean to sound ungrateful, because I was thrilled to do that role. It was a rush. But you both had to really learn how to maintain. So Howard, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the most exhausting thing I've ever done. Just physically exhausting, draining. I was a wet rag every night, and I'm sure everyone who's ever played the roles would say the same. Yeah. I can't wait to hear you guys. It definitely took it out of me every night, but I don't know, when you say you kind of envisioned it cinematically and it was to be shot once and then put in the can, because I relate to that so much, Ron, because I don't know how not to give 100% every time I'm on stage. I just don't know how not to do that. Right. So I'm in for a penny, in for a pound, and if I'm going to play it, I'm going to play it.
Right.
And so, yes, you have to learn how to kind of modulate the performance throughout the week so that you're not without a voice by the end of the week. But at the same time, I just don't know how not to give fully every time I'm out there. It's just in my DNA.
Sure.
So I guess I'm blessed with kind of, a strong constitution. I think I've got pretty strong pipes and pretty good stamina. I was a long distance swimmer.
Oh, awesome.
And I think maybe some of that stuck with me in terms of endurance. But I just found a way. And I remember when I first went into the show, and I had my put in, and I think my put-in was Friday, and then the first show was Monday night. So I had a day off before I went on the first night. And I said, is Hal going to be there? And someone said, oh, no. Hal won't come in until about 3 weeks after you've started playing this role. And I didn't understand why at the time. But after the first night, I knew exactly what they meant. Between all of the climbing of ladders and dropping through trapdoors and, being suspended from the top of the proscenium arch and working with a cape and all of the makeup and everything,
Right.
you realize that there's a lot of technical stuff that has to be worked out before you can even begin to hope to play the performance end of it. So that was a journey that I understood only after doing it, that it really is an amazing juggling act of a lot of stuff at once.
Yeah.
Till you're finally able to play the thing intensely and fully.
Yeah. Before I throw it to Tony too, I think a lot of people don't realize, because they say, "Oh, the Phantom's only on stage for 20 minutes, 25 minutes."
Right.
That, but it's 25 minutes at 1,000%, and
Exactly.
while you're off stage, your makeup's getting retouched up. You're changing costumes, heavy, giant costumes. You're climbing ladders to get up into the top of the portcullis up there, and the travelator, which we had. I don't know. Did you have the travelator in Vegas?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So the travelator, for the people who don't know, is this giant mechanism that moves. I'll do it this way so you can see it in the shot. Moves up and down the stage with a bridge through it, and the bridge is capable of sliding up and down, which creates the illusion of the stairs. But you got to climb up inside that thing. And with a mask on and with a bald cap, and they glue that bald cap to your head, then they put another wig on top of that, the alopecia wig, then you've got another wig, the slick back wig, then you've got all the layers of the makeup, then you've got the mask, then you've got the tuxedo, then you've got a cape that weighs about 92 pounds, and then a hat on top of all of it, and it's a lot. So I
remember, Ron, I remember one I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No.
I remember one rehearsal with Hal at the Majestic, where in the final layer where Phantom is crawling across the stage, stranger than you dreamt it, I think is the lyric.
Yeah.
And Hal said to me, Hal came up and stood there while I kind of dragged myself by one hand across the stage, and he said, he bent over and he said, "Are you uncomfortable? Good. That's how I want you to be."
Oh God!
He took a certain delight in the the physical difficulties of playing the role.
Oh God!
No method acting needed.
Anthony, give us your answer to that same question.
And I reiterate what both of you were saying. Here's one of the blessings of having that brand new inception of the show. Because it was a new inception of the show, our company got to work with Hal and Julie and David, the creatives, from almost day one.
Amazing.
We were Artie did the framing of the show, and then they were there. Julie and David were there from day one, but then Hal quickly came in and oversaw, because they were making small cuts, and we were doing changes. All of the stuff that both of you are reiterating. Add to that, the additional problem for me was you had to sing that show, which is opera,
right,
in the middle of the desert.
Oh, wow.
And
I never thought about that. Oh, that had to be so...
And they built this brand new theater for the production, but in order to cut whatever costs, $40 million, but we're not going to put in a humidifying system inside the building.
Oh.
So unlike the likes of Cher and Celine Dion and a few others who had to have humidity at a 70% level inside the theater or they wouldn't go on, we didn't have that luxury. So it was, I always, as far as the day-to-day of it, and I am like Howard, I don't know how to do less than 100%.
Yeah.
I can't do it because it it's not in my DNA.
Yeah.
As a performer, and I just also feel a certain obligation to the audience as well.
Yeah, and I know for people that are watching this podcast right now, who've been lucky enough to see your performances, they know that that's true of both you gentlemen, that you give 1,000,000%, and it shows in everything you do on stage, which is, of course, why you are where you are.
It's, it is, it's a work ethic that I got from my European, Italian, Sicilian parents and grandparents. And I take this, the same approach. I also, for what both of you were talking about and what you go through performance, I always talk about, when I lecture and when I teach, the actor as athlete. And how we all know this. You do a role like this, you don't just do the role. You must live the role. And what I mean by that is you must live a lifestyle that allows you to do the show over and over and over again. There are 2 roles that I have done where I had to fully commit to living the role. One of them was Che and Evita, written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and the other one was The Phantom, written by Andrew Lloyd Webber in Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
And so it is, you must commit to doing that and living a lifestyle, taking care of yourself so that you can run this marathon.
Yeah.
And, over and over and over again. It's a big physical commitment. And all the things you were saying about the costumes and how much energy, and I want to ask both of you, how much energy does it take to keep changing costumes? And I say to you, how much time did you spend in the makeup chair prior to getting on stage? And for me, we got it down with Ron Wild was the wonderful makeup artist that did my makeup each night.
Yeah.
And it took us about an hour and 10 minutes in totality.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to tell people, because a lot of people don't realize this, and I think this was still the case, because my Phantom days were, things have changed a bit since I was there, but a lot of people don't realize, excuse me, that the makeup is actually never exactly the same, that each Phantom has a completely unique sort of, I hate this word, but deformity, that the makeup is all slightly different and is redesigned a little bit for each Phantom.
Ron, if you widen out to a full of me in the entire frame, I want to point the very thing that you're talking about.
There we are.
You
There's
see
your view.
over my shoulder over here.
Yep.
There is my death mask.
Oh, you got yours. Yeah.
And which Ron gave me as one of my closing night gifts.
Wow.
So each of us, to this listening and learning audience, each of us had to go in and get a cast done.
Right.
From roughly about the waist, the chest, mid-chest up. And then from that cast of our face, as Ron was just saying, they would build custom made the makeup and custom fit everything to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Howard, your response to that, and then I want to flip over to mishaps with the makeup and sort of some of the torturous things about it. But Howard, I want to hear your response first.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that death mask, and you have to sit there for however many hours while they just keep wrapping you like a mummy.
And you have straws in your nose to breathe out.
And you have straws up your nose, exactly. Yeah.
So you can't. You can't be claustrophobic because it takes a while.
No. But then, of course, they pour the prosthetic mold into that mold, and because those prosthetic pieces become the parts of the face that become the Phantom's visage,
which are never reused, by the way. At least it was not at the time that I did it. They literally every performance gets a completely fresh piece of makeup. So they rip those things off and throw them in the trash, and you get brand new ones for the next show.
I forget what the material is, the foam that they used. It's highly absorbent, and the reason I bring that up is that the Phantom, as Tony was just alluding to, the weight of the clothing and the constant climbing up ladders and dropping through traps and doing all the things that the Phantom does, you sweat.
Yes,
a
lot.
That piece of makeup that covers one side of your face is completely drenched by the end of the night. There's just it's not pretty.
No.
There's nothing pretty about showbiz. That's you learn to live with that. So thank God they throw that out at the end of the night.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to climb back into that. God, I remember, because it starts with the bald cap. They glue this bald cap onto you, and they glue it in the back, and they glue it around the thing. And for me, that damn thing was always so tight. I always felt like something was pulling my head back the entire show, which makes it really, really challenging to sing. But God, I remember so you're sweating inside this thing with all this stuff on, and every once in a while, the sweat, I felt so sorry for the Christines, because the sweat would find a hole in that thing, and all of a sudden it would just kind of shoot out. and inevitably
Yes.
spray the Christine who was, there. That oh God, I just hated that. But that was one of the
Oh my
hardest things
God,
because
yeah.
you're trapped in the heat of that. For 2.5 hours, 3 hours really by the time you get it. Your question, Anthony, was about how long the makeup took. We got it down to about 40 minutes, and
Wow.
it was because I was an impatient guy. I was really impatient with the process. How long for you, Howard?
I think about an hour and 10, an hour 15, something like that, Tony. Yeah, I think, Ron. Yeah,
Same.
it's about that.
Did either of you ever leave the makeup on between, like on a 2-show day? You did.
Always.
Wow, really?
Always.
What was
Because
that
you have
like?
to also consider we were a different schedule because it was a casino
Right.
contract.
Oh, right. Oh,
So
because you had shorter time between, right?
yes, and we wouldn't start. What would happen because of casino contract? First show would be at 7 o'clock, 90-minute, 95-minute performance. Second show was at 10 o'clock. So is that right? I believe that's right. 10 o'clock.
Really wasn't
then
enough time
you
to
would
take it
repeat
off anyway.
So it was there wasn't enough time to take it off and put it back on. Well, except your segue into working with some Christines. One of my, when you do a show like Phantom over the course of a long period of time, 6.5 years for me, one of the wonderful things that happens as far as how do you do that, repeat that performance and stay creative and have an edge for the performance and create new performance each one. Well, in this particular case, I was opposite nine different Christines
Wow.
over the course of 6.5 years.
Wow.
And so each one of them possesses different talents, different ways of doing things, different acting approaches. And so you're working, it's like playing tennis. You're volleying opposite somebody different each night, which is wonderful because it allows you the opportunity to explore. One of the Christines, my dear Christy Holden, she went through a period of time where, for whatever reason, whether a little bit of panic or whatever, but one time she went to pull the mask off, as there is with the reveals that happens in the midst of the show, and her nails went a little bit too far, and she ripped off part of the makeup, and unfortunately, once that happened, she got a little bit paranoid, and it happened several times, to the point that we had to rehearse her taking the mask off and being told you got to relax as you're doing that at the same time. It's that delicate balance. But because that happened, the makeup artist, once again, in a 2-show day, he'd have to reapply almost, we'd have to basically, yes, the skull cap was on, but he would have to just basically start all over again.
Wow.
So again, it's live theater, and these things do happen in performance. And so, for all of us, you wind up having to adapt accordingly.
Right. Absolutely. Let's God, there's so much territory to cover on something like this. So let's segue a little bit to a different topic here. We've talked about the challenges in the long run. We've talked about some makeup issues. Let's talk a little bit about Andrew Lloyd Webber. Let's talk about singing his music, and let's talking about meeting Andrew, working with Andrew. I think people would be really interested in hearing about that. Howard, what do you got? Tell me.
Melody, melody, melody. I mean, those melodies, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really fully appreciated it until I was surrounded by that melody 8 times a week for as long as I was. It never got old. He is a genius. That's all I can say. There is something about his ear for not just a catchy tune, but a melody that will really move you. It's extraordinary, and I've never seen or heard anything like it. It's just phenomenal what he's done. And I took part in a little exercise, a workshop of a show called Unmasked about 1.5 years ago that we did in New York. It then had a run out at the Paper Mill Playhouse last year.
Yeah.
But again, that goes all the way back to his very early days as a composer, from Joseph on. The melodies just keep coming. It's just incredible to me.
Yeah.
So that's my huge takeaway from from working in Phantom was the extraordinary gift that he has with melody. And what can I say? I didn't have that much one-on-one contact with him, except for galas. You know, when the show hit a certain milestone, he would come and we'd have a lovely party, and you know, we'd share a drink together, and that would be it.
He likes to come to the parties. He definitely does.
It was a lovely experience.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, my Phantom journey, I did not have any contact with Andrew during that, but prior to that, I had done Aspects of Love, which he was around a lot for, which I did in Canada and then became the U.S. tour. And ultimately, Sarah Brightman did come in and join us in L.A. and play the role of Rose in that. So we saw a lot of Andrew during that time. And he was around a lot on Woman in White, too, which is another Andrew Lloyd Webber show that I got to do. I played Sir Percival Glyde in that on Broadway.
I saw you in that. You were terrific.
Oh, thanks, man.
I loved that production. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, it's, you know, you were talking about bounce, and, you know, we've all three of us have had our share of being involved in shows that, like, this is the one. This is not the one. It's very disappointing when that happens, you know. But
that's also a testament, Ron, to your heart. You know, and I know this about Tony too. I'm a fan of Tony's as well, and I know it's because of the heart that you bring to it. You never ever for a second think, "Oh, this isn't the one. This is the one." Yeah. Every production I've ever been involved in, this is the one, because I must commit myself 100% to this production, and I must involve my heart in this journey together. You know, like you say, the family that you form in a show, it's part of that is you're opening your heart to the entire process. So yeah, they're all the one. You know, that's, you know, when your work ethic is that, they're all the one. Whether, you know, it's a flop or whether, you know, you're never going to let it be a flop in your mind. It's always going to be, I'm going to show up. And that's the work ethic that you talked about, Anthony, which I admire you so much for that.
Well, both of you guys, and we all share this as well. I mean, when you have longevity of career, knock on wood, part of what happens in career is that, again, it's you're creating something brand new. And I will speak like to what Howard was saying about Bounce. I remember hearing nothing but wonderful things about Bounce in Chicago, and when it was trying out the performances, and you look at, my God, it's Hal Prince and you know, Richard Kind, it's Howard, it was such a, you know, you go, this is a
Steve Sondheim,
Sondheim, my God, and
John Warman,
how can this not succeed?
Yeah,
and you know, and so. Yes, we're putting out there because we want to create the best possible product that there is, and even in, you know, sometimes in spite of that, you know, productions can have that gestation period, and it's a necessary gestation period when it, you know, going on the road. Unfortunately, these days, what happens now is, for financial reasons, sometimes a production will come into New York, and how many times have we seen this, without going on the road? And they don't have that luxury of development and all of that. And, you know, and it can lead to a quick demise, you know, so it's fortuitous. But, you know, there's also something wonderful in that whole creative process, even when a production does not succeed. And beyond that, you're working with, you know, in these situations, the best of the best in the business, you know, which is just wonderful as well.
Absolutely.
You know, I'll say what happened for me with Phantom in the developmental process, and with Andrew, was that because it was a new inception of the show, David Caddick and Hal were on the phone and conversing with Andrew the entire time. Andrew finally came in for the last 2.5 weeks before it was about 2 weeks before our first preview. And the majority of the time, as I was told was going to happen, he was on the soundboard, and he was adjusting and remixing. He left, came back, and when he returned, same thing, back on the board again, adjusting and mixing. You're like, What?
Tony, I was just gonna say that Andrew was the phantom of the soundboard at the Majestic. He would come in and go straight to the soundboard. He wouldn't come backstage.
Yeah.
He would
Guys,
just go straight to the soundboard.
We all know Andrew is the real Phantom, and
Yes.
and it is that, and frankly, from I'm sure for both of you, it is when you do your rehearsing and your conceptualization and your work, your studies and reading and all of that, and the novel, and you're also going, this is coming from Lloyd Webber, and so there's a portion of Lloyd Webber that is connected to these characters, and I must also be aware of Andrew, because it's Andrew and it's Andrew's voice. Let me say this about the music.
Yeah.
It is, as Howard would say, melodic and wonderful, but at times, guys, I am sure, did you not want to kill him because it goes so high and so low?
Yeah.
And it goes back to the point of, the Phantom is on stage for 22, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
But when you're out there,
Yeah.
your metal is tested to try and again, the large projected high notes, etc., and then going into that pianissimo, that falsetto that you have to do as well. I gave you my music. That whole, all of those points, that we have to do. It really, all of your training comes into play when you're doing that role.
For sure. And you're also shouting a lot in the show. And when you shout repeatedly, what starts to take the pressure? Your falsetto starts to for me to weaken. So you suddenly, you're looking for that to soar, and you've been shouting all night, and you're like to soar.
And
just
my
get
God,
that whistle.
guys, also the poor Christines and Carlottas. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah, it's so extreme. The challenges are great, and yet, much like doing Sondheim, which we've all done as well, we live. That's why we're here. We live for those challenges. You show up. This is, especially because we're talking, to students with the Broadway Mentors Program. This is a career. It's not one you want to get into just because you go, I'm going to be famous and blah blah blah. You gotta show up. This is athletic, as you said earlier, Anthony. You have to take an athletic approach to doing this work because it is challenging.
And all of that studying that we all three of us have done, like I said.
Yeah.
The purpose of taking those classes and going and learning and stretching your instrument and all of those things that we do as we're learning. Does it not all come into play for all of us over and over again with every single role that we have done? But this particular role, oh my God, it really tests your mettle.
Yeah. Let's change topics here. These are hard questions to answer quick, but we also have these Facebook questions that I want to get to too, because people really did get some good ones for us. Talk about when you got the role and when you were figuring out the role, like what about it did you want to highlight? Because every Phantom, whether they are really trying hard to be or if they're just showing up for it, they're different. Everybody brings a unique spin to it. So Anthony, talk to me about when you landed the role and you're like, what is it? What do I want to bring to this? What do I want to highlight here?
Yes, absolutely. I'll go back to, it happened in the audition process. And in the audition process, at one point, I sang the high falsetto that is inside the angel. And I take it back. I sang Music of the Night. And then Hal stopped, and there was this panel, as both of you have alluded to, when you're in there and you're auditioning. There's all of these bodies in the darkness, and you hear Hal say, "That was swell, kid."
Yeah.
And he also said to me, "Okay, now, Tony, you and I know what you can do, and I know the passion that you bring to your performances. I want you to show our producers the passion." And so then had to sing that high, I gave you my music, that whole thing. And obviously letting it well up in me and then go. It is in singing it, what also happened at one point, you know, I was fortunate that it sort of right place, right time, and for each of us, each individual actor brings a different interpretation, a different skill set.
Yeah.
And you have to have the ability to do certain things that are the requirements givens of the role. But Hal had said that he wanted to slightly, with this Vegas production, to slightly put a little bit of a different spin. And one of the reasons, you know, which he recognizes is in me, is my intensity. And so, and passion, which he has.
You were freezing up just a little bit on that, Tony. Can you say that again? One of the things
that he allowed me to do and encouraged me to do was to bring my passion and intensity to the role.
Yeah.
And what happened was, in one of the run-throughs prior to performance, Artie Masala came to me and said, I have to tell you a story. The producer, while you were performing in rehearsal, leaned over to, as it were, Scott Zeiger, our producer from bass at the time, leaned over to Hal and said, my God, he's so intense. And Hal leaned over to him and smiled. And he said, and Hal said, yeah, and I want even more. And I'm sure for all of us, as Howard was saying, the story about crawling on the floor.
Yeah.
And how does that feel? And, you know, he would encourage his actors and make you pull from different aspects of your being to bring that and explore that within the framework of the role. Yeah. And, you know, and for all three of us, what a role to explore, right? Oh. What a complicated human being the Phantom is.
There's so many layers there. And, you know, for me, that was, I had sort of trouble opening the door at first in terms of, like, when I was cast in the role, I was like, what the hell am I going to do with this? I mean, I really didn't know I didn't have a door. And I'd seen the production. I'd seen Colm Wilkinson do it up in Canada. And I'd seen it in New York. Chris Groendahl was doing the role by the time I saw it. Who's also a wonderful, lovely man and funny as hell.
I saw both of them do that. And they were terrific.
Isn't Chris funny? I see Howard responding to that. Chris is very funny. It cracks me up every time I see him. And,
very funny guy.
Yeah, but I didn't see my door into it. And I read the novel, actually, was the thing that really helped me. And there's a little passage in the novel where this character, who's not in the musical, called the Persian, arrives to sort of help them solve this calamity that the Phantom is creating. And he takes them through the opera house and he points out to them all the mechanical operations that created the concept of him being a ghost. This is how he disappeared in this place. This is how he got into this room. Here's the secret door. Here's this. And I was like, oh, I get it. He's all these things, but he is a man. He's not a spirit. He's not a this. He's a that. He is a man who has to figure out how to find power by convincing people that he is supernatural. And then it started to make sense to me. And then from there, I was like, so what does he want? And in many ways, this one is simpler than many of the roles I think that we've all played, which is that he really wants one thing. I mean, of course, he wants his opera performed and all those things, but what does he want? Christine, hello. He wants Christine. It's just like, boom, he's got a laser focus. And he'll do whatever he has to. He'll pretend to be a ghost. He'll pretend to be her father. He'll pretend to be whatever he needs to be. But he's, you know, she is the key that will open his lock, you know, and that for me was, you know, the door to that. And that's what I sort of tried to make it about. And the one other thing I really wanted to highlight within it, you know, we know from the story that he's a murderer and that he's done these horrible things. We see Bouquet's body and we see Piangi's body but we don't actually see him do these things. We see the shadow, you know, and I really wanted it to be believable for an audience that this man who was that vulnerable and was this abandoned child and who was that mewling, puking infant crawling on the floor, as Hal used to say about the, you know, the stranger than you dreamt it crawling, you know, to Christine to get his mask back as he's been just revealed. He's a mewling, puking infant is what he's reduced to. And, but I also wanted it to be entirely believable in the final layer that this was the same man who killed those people and he could do it again in a heartbeat. that, and of course that's another piece of it that makes it so exhausting to play, bringing those sides of him to life, but this is what makes it such a great role, because he's all these things. And in the end, he gets to be revealed as just brokenhearted and alone on the stage when she returns his ring to him. And he's alone in the melody of that beautiful yum pum 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 pum. And it's just, that was a glorious moment to get to be completely destroyed and vulnerable and weeping on stage to that melody, as I'm sure you guys relate to. So those were some things I wanted to highlight in it. Howard, and I got to see Howard perform this role many times, because I used to go sit in box 5 because my wife was in the show with you, and so I get to sort of hang up there and see the show and see you do your thing, and it was really, really cool. Talk to me a little bit about.
I got to see Howard do it as well.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
During the run.
Yeah.
Say again.
Yes. Well,
Howard,
so talk to us about like what you saw as like, what do I want to bring here? What's my spin? I mean, the spin's the wrong word. What's my contribution?
Well, you couldn't have said it more beautifully, Ron. I thought that was such a beautiful kind of description of the complexity of this guy. And I think that I just know that my first way in was how much the melody of Music of the Night grabbed my heart. But then I, of course, read the book, and I, of course, started to think about how do I make this guy real?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much artifice involved in the kind of the size of this epic production, and all of the trapdoors and all of the craziness of, is he a man, is he a ghost, all that stuff. But what I wanted to do was to make him human. And so, not a couple things. I intentionally did not see the show. I'd seen it way back when they were in previews. I saw Michael Crawford do it back in previews. I was doing Anything Goes at Lincoln Center when Phantom opened.
Right.
And I went to see it.
And you were brilliant in that as well.
Oh, thanks. I went to see it on my night off, and I loved it. But it just never occurred to me that I would end up playing it. I mean, you never know in your life or in your career. But then when I was actually asked to do it, I intentionally wanted to make it as much as I possibly could my own, knowing that when you go in to replace, and we can talk about replacing in shows. I've done it several times on Broadway. When you go into a show that's already up on its feet, it has a track worn into the stage where other actors are depending on you to be there in the same place that the actor before you was there, in the same position, or it's going to throw everything off. So you have to. It's a very fine dance that you have to do when you replace in a show that's been running on Broadway, where you can't upset the apple cart just because of your own ego and wanting to make it new for yourself. Mm-hmm. There are certain things you must adhere to. Yeah. But at the same time, I also wanted to imagine it for myself as if it were the first time it was ever performed, because otherwise, why do it, right?
Right.
So that was kind of my goal. But how you described him was to me perfect, Ron. The little boy who never ever felt loved, who never ever found the power that he actually had, obviously through his music and everything the goodness that he had. And so he becomes, in essence, a terrorist. We opened. I went into the show in actually 1999, guys. It seems so long ago. Oh my God, I'm so old. But I went into the show, and then 9/11 happened. Right. And I was in the show on 9/11, or before 9/11 happened, and we, of course, shut down for a couple nights. When we went back and started performing again, it was a very shaky time for every performance, of course, because people were slowly coming back, trying to imagine a new life going forward from 9/11. And the terrorist aspect of the Phantom was so front and center for me, and I'm sure for everyone sitting in that audience. Yeah. He yells from the top of the gallery, a disaster beyond your imagination will occur. You know, the kinds of things that he does. You know, there's that aspect of him, but
we're living
there's
through
also
a disaster beyond our imagination at that time. To hear that in the audience.
Exactly.
I was actually doing Floyd Collins, which at the time of 9/11, when, you know, with same kind of thing, it's like we're dealing with a story about someone who's trapped under rubble, and just like, oh God. But anyway, please continue.
Right. Well, no, I mean, I could go on and on. It was a great process of finding my way into the character, kind of. Peter von Meyerhauser, who put me into the show, who was the production supervisor, was very, very patient with me, because I really wanted to talk a lot before I actually started to get up on my feet with it, because I wanted to understand who this man was and to make him as human as I possibly could. So I think I probably bored him out of his mind, but that was my process. I just wanted to I wanted to get it right, and I wanted to get it right for my heart.
Yeah.
So
this is you and Teddy in the gondola. That's
yes, my dear love. My darling Teddy, he's long gone. Yeah, but we had a production. A photo shoot that day, and Teddy would come with me to the theater on matinee days, because my husband worked and I wasn't able to leave him with him. So I brought Teddy with me to the theater twice a week. And he was.
Is he your favorite Christine ever?
Don't tell Sandra that. but I said, "Do you think we?"
Here's my favorite Christine, and
she is,
and my favorite with you. This is my favorite photo of you, because there's my gorgeous wife, Sandra Joseph. Who
I think we played together longer than I played with any Christine on Broadway.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. She was just splendid, so radiant in that role.
She adores you so much as well. All right, I'm gonna veer off into Facebook land now, guys, for some questions from some fans that wrote in, and maybe we'll just one of us will answer one of these questions so we can move through them as quick as we can. Charles wants to know what was it like to put on the mask for the very first time. Anthony, why don't you take that?
You know, one of the wonderful things that happens with so many roles, but in particular this role, and when you're portraying the Phantom, is you sit in a makeup chair, usually with a mirror in front of you, whatever the makeup artist is working on you, but you see the transformation happen, and so that becomes part of the process. And so when you're feeling it, you're watching it, and you know, you're at the same time you wear the Phantom's mutation. And that we were talking before about the child, the wounded child, and all of these other different wonderful the psychological work that goes into the layering of the character. You know, it's you see actuated on your face the deformity that the Phantom had from his early childhood. That comes into play with the relationships that he has with all of the other characters, and specifically Christine, but also the backstory of the relationship with his mother, the rejection that he went through because of this deformity. So it becomes actuated on your face. One of the things that I did too in my, you know, like putting the psychological aspects together, was you see at the same time the vulnerability of the man, as well as why is he going for this young ingenue? Why is he attracted to the young ingenue? And I always felt like it was a missing portion of his childhood. And you have this man who is a genius, as you were talking before, Ron, about the fact that in the novel it talks about how he creates the illusion of being a ghost and moving from place to place. Well, that means he's also an engineer. He's a composer. He's a scientist. He's so many other things, but he has never experienced that puppy love. He's never gone through that experience of young love. Yeah. And so that, I think, is part of the reason why he is drawn to this young girl too, and wanting to have that experience. Well, you're also wearing this deformity. We put it on the first time. It's a major transformation. And as both of you gentlemen were talking about before, each makeup is different. Each one is slightly all custom made too.
Right.
So it you sort of wear it as you will. The great thing about it as a badge, but it also helps to, just like putting on those clothes, right, guys? The clothes had a very particular feel to them.
Yeah.
And it just, each layer that you would go through each night, it helped you to formulate who the character was.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Good. Let's take another question. Howard, why don't you take this one? Shaw wants to know, and maybe bullet point answers for this, because we've touched on a lot of this. What was the most rewarding part of playing the part, and what was the most difficult part of each performance?
I'll take them in reverse order. The most difficult was the exhaustion that I felt at the end of each performance, but certainly on my day off. By the time I got to Sunday morning, I was totally spent, and it took all of Sunday to kind of recharge for Monday night again.
Yeah.
And then the most exquisite moment about it, I think, really has to have been singing Music of the Night every night, because the sound of silence in the audience was like nothing I've ever heard on a stage before or since.
Would you agree with that, Anthony? Because I experienced that too, where it was just like, it's like they've waited for this moment to come.
I'm sure you both,
just the silence is, it's just incredible.
I'm sure you both have experienced this as well. I mean, for our fans and those who have seen us in performance in this show, how people come back and talk about how they were affected by the performances and the singing and everything, and to have the privilege, and I specifically use that term, it's the privilege of doing that role and singing Music of the Night, and for both of you gentlemen, with those orchestras that we worked with in the pit and the conductors that we worked with, it's just it's a wonderful feeling as a performer to be able to experience all of that, and specifically with Music of the Night, as as Howard was just saying, those quiet moments, the pianissimo as well. It's just you could see and feel how the audience is affected by it all.
One of the great things. Go ahead, Howard.
Oh, go ahead, Ron. No, go.
I was just going to say, one of the great things about doing the show on tour is that every time you arrive in a new city, you have to do a sitz probe with the orchestra, which, if you don't know what a sitz probe is a rehearsal with the orchestra without costumes, where you play through the score. And we would sing into microphones, very much like this one, and we would just do the music. And every time it brought you back to the gloriousness of those orchestrations and the handmade nature, even though this has all been put on paper. We all got to get out there and make it every single time. And it was just heaven to listen to that music in that way, just by itself, with no sets, no scenery, no nothing. By itself, it is a gem. It's just glorious. Sorry, Howard, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to just kind of second what Anthony said about the gift of, and the great blessing of singing Music of the Night, that has continued on ever since I left the show. I've sung it all around the world. What a gift!
Yeah.
What a gift! That's all.
Yeah. So it's just so spectacular. There was a lot of questions about this kind of thing. Everybody wants to know this, and we probably all have talked about this one question in some interview or another. Everybody wants to know, tell me about the time something went wrong. What was the funny thing that happened? And that was Alexandra's question. It was a number of people's questions here. So, Anthony, give us your best blooper from the show.
We, at one point, it was, I forget which Christine it was. Well, I have two. Talk about bloopers. One was one time, I forget which Christine, took the mask off, and when she ripped it off, it flew. And it went in front, it went beyond the that big metal curtain that was the gate that we would come into when we come into the lair, right? Mm-hmm. So it was up there. Oh my God, we don't have a mask. Somehow I don't even remember how she got it, but it was, instead of putting the mask back on, just trying to cover and having to get to a certain point. And fortunately, she was able to retrieve the mask and we resumed. The wonderful thing about that is it's that it's that Stanislavski method training thing that happens. The no such thing as an accident on stage, the potential for divine inspiration. You go to those moments, you go to your training, and you somehow make it work. The other thing that I will talk about with another one of my dear Christines, and who is such a wonderful, wonderful friend. At Vegas, I got to do it opposite two different Christines, Elizabeth Loyacano, when we opened, I should say, Elizabeth Loyacano and Sierra Bogus.
Yeah.
And Sierra, and I had, and, you know, this was funny, but it was absolutely terrifying. The Vegas production involved a lot of more special effects and things that had happened. We had, and there was a backup of cues because it's all computerized. And so it was right close to the opening of the show where I drag her on. Was it? No, I take it back. It was toward the end of the show, and I drag her on stage. What happened was we had the smoke effects that you have that are on the stage, and so to create the fog that you would go through with the boat into the lair, etc. The fog had happened, but there was a backup of cues, and so there's a series of trapdoors on the stage that would open, and that would allow the chandeliers to rise through. Because of the backup of cues, there was smoke on the fog on the stage, and the trapdoors opened, but the chandeliers did not rise. And the conductor kept on going with the track. Stage manager did not stop the show. So because the music continued, we made an entrance. Sierra and I made the entrance, and simultaneously into the fog which had accumulated on the stage. Simultaneously, we tripped on an open trapdoors.
Oh my God!
And both disappeared. And I came up, and she was gone. And I went, oh my God, Sarah has fallen through the trapdoor, and below the stage is 30, 40 feet.
Oh my!
And I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going on? Well, she pops up, and okay, she's there. But Sierra began to sing with her hand by her mouth. And we continued to finally, the stage manager comes on stage, stop. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a technical difficulty. We're going to close the front curtain, and we're going to resume in a moment once we make the corrections. I go up to Sierra and I say, are you okay? And she said, I think I lost a tooth. And I said, what? She said, I think I fell and I think I lost a tooth. She drops her hands, and sure enough, she had knocked out one of her teeth. She laughs about it now, and God bless her. Goes to emergency, gets in the middle of the show. We have to have the cover goes on. I think it was Amanda Huddleston went on, finished the show. Sierra had to have dental surgery, returned to the show. God bless her, trooper, returns to the show, a week later. But, funny but absolutely terrifying that sometimes these things that happen in live theater.
Yeah.
And
but that tells you all you need to know about Sierra Bogus, that she popped back up and she was ready to go on with her hand covering her bleeding mouth. That's a trooper.
Yeah, for sure. She is amazing. I think, I'm not sure everybody knows, but that you do sign there's a fee for extraordinary risk that is paid to actors, and it's usually rolled into a principal salary in some way, but I think an ensemble, they get it too, and it's necessary because things go wrong. These are dangerous shows. Hopefully most of the time they're not. And please, stage managers protect us like crazy. Yeah. They really, really do. So, I mean to say that they have got our backs, and we're deeply, deeply grateful for them, because things happen. There can be dangers in shows like that, and thank God you guys were okay. That's a scary story. Howard, do you have a mishap that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I have a mishap. It doesn't involve me. I mean, I was in the Angel, hanging suspended 40 feet over the stage.
So let me just say, for people who are not familiar, when that scene starts, which is the not the rooftop scene, but the scene prior, the scene at the Opera House, the Phantom
Yes.
has to be in. He has to climb the inside of the proscenium where the audience can see him, and has to be sitting up in the proscenium where he appears a couple times, and then gets in the angel. So you're up there for quite a long time. So
Right,
continue.
and it's a beautiful gilded angel that seems to be a part of the proscenium arch of the theater, and then it suddenly lowers down magically, and he's right there watching the rooftop scene, where, of course, one of the most famous songs of the duet of "All I Ask of You" is sung, and just as I was being lowered down, I heard them start the intro for "No More Talk of Darkness." And I won't say who the actor was who was playing Raoul, because I don't want to embarrass him, but Lisa Vroman was Christine. And just as he was about to start to sing, there was silence. And I looked down, and he was running for the wings because he had become violently ill.
Oh.
And Lisa Vroman, the most glorious voice in the world, sang the entire duet by herself.
Oh my God.
It's a solo.
Oh my God.
And it was flawless. She didn't skip a beat. It was amazing.
Wow.
But that's showbiz, right?
Yeah.
He was violently ill, throwing up in a bucket off stage while she sang "No More Talk of Darkness."
If his mic was still on, that would have been pretty horrible too. If we no more talk of darkness.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, Vroman is a pro. She's amazing.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Let's grab a couple other questions because we're getting tight on time, and I don't want to keep you guys all day here with this. So this was a really Keith, who's a big fan of the show, had some really interesting questions, but I just want to focus on one. He says, address the quote far-reaching versus fathering gaze. Who decides, and what's the thought behind that? So what I have
You
to
answered that,
assume.
Ron.
What's that?
You answered that.
Well,
I said you
yeah.
answered that one, man.
Well, what I have to assume about this, because I did not know it changed, because when I was doing the show, so this is a reference to a lyric in the Angel or Father, too long you've wandered in winter, far from my far-reaching gaze is what I always sang. But apparently there was a change at some point where it became far from my fathering gaze. Did either of you sing that lyric?
Nope.
I did.
You did.
If I'm remembering correctly. Yep.
Okay.
But again, we were a brand new conceptualized production, and we were a little bit further down. When the show had already been running on Broadway and beyond for years.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's just talk a little bit about, because I think it's interesting to think, well, what would be the difference between those? I think fathering works. I mean, I think my take on it is I think the Phantom would say whatever he needed to say to achieve his goal. It's one of the brilliant psychological things of the piece is that she is confused about, is it the angel my father sent? Is it my father himself? The more he can pull at her heartstrings, the more psychotic and effed up it is, but also the more potent it is that he's like, look, he's pretty desperate at that point. Raoul is in the picture, and he's, from the romantic standpoint, it looks like he's winning, so I can definitely see him I think either one plays. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Well, my guess is that it's dramaturgical. I think that it probably was, and again, maybe I'm wrong, Tony, but I think I sang far-reaching gaze, but I could be wrong as well. But my guess is that it might have been confusing to an audience to hear him sing my fathering gaze, and for the audience, and maybe Hal and Andrew and everyone were concerned about the audience being confused about who her father was and whether he was indeed the Phantom or, so I don't know. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Speculation.
I would say it's sort of, it rang true to me from the standpoint of that unrequited love, and that, they talk about how the Phantom is the Svengali, the mentor, the vocal teacher, and all of those things. But it when you look at his psychological profile and what was going on, as Ron had talked about a little bit before too, the complexity of it. And when I said that whole thing about the never experiencing even puppy love, so you've got this dualistic dynamic that is going on in this individual at the same time. Obviously, he's also attracted to the student, and so you put that component together, it's extremely dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. And so it gives the actor something to have to also be able to psychologically dig into, and helps to flavor also what is this performance. And and the inside of that too, you're spinning as an actor about the fatherly side, the mentor side, the attraction side at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Victoria wants to know, I'll take this one. Have you ever felt yourself so lost in the character in the moment that you began to cry and felt true emotions of passion or love with Christine on stage? Well, I think, that's probably, in my case, fairly obvious. I mean, there's my wife. So, yes, I did, in fact, marry my Christine. And I'm not the only one, I think. There are actually several. Kathy Voitko and John Kudia are a married couple who were Phantoms and Christines. Now, I can't say whether I know if they actually fell in love while they were doing the show, but I do know that it's, and everybody talks about the element of a showmance, and I think both Sandra and I were nervous about, when we became apparent that we had feelings for each other. Is this a showmance, but it proved to be that it was something quite a bit more potent than that. So you guys got time for a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up?
Sure.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Here's an interesting one. Thoughts on Love Never Dies?
Oh, I have a myriad of thoughts about it. It was interesting because I was doing the show at the same time that it was being conceptualized and worked on, and et cetera. And I have actually a little side story. When Andrew saw Sierra perform the role for the first time
in Vegas,
he came back. He came on stage afterward and began to speak to her, and I could see this glow in his face. And I saw the birth of the muse happen right before my eyes. And I knew it. I just said to myself, she's going to do one of his next shows. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's a beautiful actress and what a spectacular voice.
Amazing. She's spectacular. Yeah.
A wonderful performer, and such a sweet person and funny, and all of those elements that she is.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I saw it but I had some definitive opinions. And here's the crazy thing about, and I'm sure you both feel the same way, Phantom fans, the PHANS,
right?
The fans know as much, the real fans, if not more than the creatives at times. Mm-hmm. They dissect it. They dissect the roles. They know everything about it. In the conceptualization of Love Never Dies, I thought there was a few things that, and again with their fans, that didn't really sort of follow through with what was initially the concept of who these characters were. And there was a little bit of sort of like from the fan base that they felt it was, certain aspects of the show were incorrect, not true to the original, and a few things. And it has struggled to get a real foothold. I mean, I believe it's going to be done they're trying to move it forward to Broadway soon.
Yeah.
I went so far because of all the research and all of that to actually, like in my head, and reconstructed the plot line and wrote out what I thought would be a better plot line.
What it should be.
I love you, Tony.
Because the potential is all there.
Yeah.
And I actually sent that to Hal.
Man, when you go into a character, dude, you go in.
I love that you did that.
I did, and to Jilly, and they both, because I also felt that with this show, that combination of creatives, which we all know were so wonderful, that they should be allowed to
do that version.
And yeah, I mean, given the opportunity.
Which for people don't know it, they don't know that other people did direct and choreograph and stage. It was not the original team.
No, it was not.
From Phantom of the Opera. Yeah.
I will say this: Hal thought, geez, he wrote me back this lovely note saying, "You've given this a great deal of thought, and I think your ideas are wonderful. But I would, if I offered the opportunity, I would respectfully decline." He was one person that he always thought that the notion of Love Never Dies and that a sequel was, for that particular show, was not a great idea for whatever reason. I mean, I think all of us, we all want, the fans too, wanted to see another creation of Phantom because it's such a wonderful musical and show. And how can you what happens? All those questions, and how did even the prequel too. I mean, so, it's not surprising that Andrew would say, I'm going to do this and explore this notion. Yeah. I mean, I hope to God that it does find success, more success.
Well, two thoughts occur, Ron. I'm going to squeeze these in because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, we're getting
one. Gillian Lynn, I want to make sure that everyone knows when we say Jilly, we're talking about Gillian Lynn, God rest her soul. Yeah. She was a force of nature beyond which the theater has never known. She was such a beautiful, beautiful spirit and talent, and she was an irreplaceable part of Phantom and of many of Andrew Lloyd Webber's successes, of course, Cats. Just a fantastic, fantastic soul who wrote me a 3-page, single-spaced, handwritten fax when I took over the role that described all of the Phantom's innermost sexuality issues that went into who he was in graphic detail. So I think you guys might understand what I'm talking about when I say that.
Absolutely.
And the other thought I have is about Love Never Dies, just really quickly, is melody again. That melody for Love Never Dies, for the title song, is so gorgeous. And I just have to mention Rebecca Luker because it's a very personal moment for me. I sang Love Never Dies with her on stage in Tokyo.
Oh, wonderful.
Wonderful.
The most exquisite, beautiful woman singing this most exquisite, beautiful song. Yeah. And, she's struggling health-wise right now. And I just wanted to say, I'll never hear that song again. Yeah. Love Never Dies is one of the most beautiful melodies he's ever written. So I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Rebecca, we all love you, and we're sending you our absolute best. You're so in all of our thoughts and in the entire theater community's thoughts, and everybody.
And Rebecca is a Broadway mentor.
That she is a Broadway mentor.
And she is.
Which brings me actually to our final question. I want to thank everybody who wrote questions in for Facebook, and I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of them, but I hope we answered some of them in our earlier portion as well. So let's get back to this. This is the Broadway Mentors Program podcast. So the three of us have all now found ourselves at a point in our careers where we began to ask ourselves the question, or start to hear the question asked, what do I have to give back now? In other words, making the transition from being an actor and performer, which we all still are, of course, but to the point of now how do we pass something on that makes it easier for the next generation? So I'd love for both of you to just tell us a little bit about your journey into mentoring, and maybe give one kernel of maybe that one most important thing that you would tell a young actor who's up and coming. Anthony, why don't we start with you?
I always say when I lecture to students and teach, the most important element of all of this is your education. It is, and to reach for the highest potential goals that you can. And I think all three of us would attest to this. It's imperative in a myriad of ways to get your degree and the highest degree that you can. Because it is, if you do decide to go down a professional path, it is a path that is filled with pitfalls and uncertainty. And not only is it a backup, your education, a backup for you, as all three of us will attest to. When you work with the likes of the Gillian Lynns and the Hal Princes and the Andrew Lloyd Webbers, obviously, and on and on and on, some of the other names that have come up in this discussion, they are operating on a very particular level, and they want to work with well-rounded actors, and I don't mean just well-rounded actors that are masters of the craft and career, but actors and performers that have a diversification in their background and an understanding. All of that education comes into play. It comes into play not only with the roles that you do, but I think all three of us would attest to the fact that we are our own captains of our ships. And so as an actor, you must also be able, you're your secretary, you're the gopher, you're the president, vice president, publicity person, marketing director, computer expert, and contract negotiating situation. All of those aspects come into play when you have a career. And so a wide diversified education is imperative as well because it is, as we started earlier in this broadcast and this podcast today, it is a marathon for all of us as performers. You don't want to have a situation where you have that one burst and then the career is over. And I'm sure all three of us have seen that occur as well. You want to work for longevity, and your education and degree, getting your degree, is one of the most important cogs you can do yourself and for a career.
Absolutely. Howard, same question for you, your journey into mentoring, and maybe that concise piece of advice that the one most important thing you would tell, someone who wants to be you, like I wanted to be, and, watching your brilliant performances. And I just, for both of you, before you answer, I just have to say, like, I'm a huge admirer of your performance in Anthony and Kiss of the Spider-Woman. Whoa, crazy. Of course you won the Tony for that. It was just brilliant. And Howard, I said, I think earlier in the podcast, I watched you play Jasper in Mystery of Edwin Drood over and over again. And that performance, dude, I will never get over that. I was like, literally, I would sit there. I was like,
Great.
That's what I want to do every time I would watch you. So
saw that one, saw Anything Goes, saw Phantom, Howard. I mean, the guy, Howard, and you're here in front of me, but he is a talent and a consummate pro. And as you can all see, both of these guys are lovely people as well.
We bow to you, Howard.
Well, please.
Well, listen,
both of you guys.
Listen.
Both of you guys, come on.
Stop it. I mean, look at you, both of you. I love you so much, and I admire your work and your talent, and I'm honored to be a part of this panel. So that being said, I just want to say I kind of came to teaching because I really wanted to be able to give the same thing that I had received so many times during my career from so many brilliant people who were so generous and kind to give me their inspiration and their insights into what makes an acting career a success. Not just an acting career, but actually life and living as a good person in this world. I mean, I think that really is what it comes down to in a way. So I found my way kind of through that kind of winding road, and I still, of course, love acting and love performing and love singing, but I also am very, very happy to be able to teach as well. I've been teaching at NYU, and I love it as much as anything. And one of the things that occurred to me as Tony was talking is about that well-roundedness that all of us need to bring into the room. And when I'm teaching auditions for NYU, which is what I've been kind of focusing on for the past couple of years at NYU, I'm teaching seniors in their auditioning, putting their books together for auditions. And what I want to feel every time somebody walks into the room is, I want to spend time with this person. And that goes well beyond the talent that they have. Of course, talent is key, and you must be talented to begin with. But you also, I want to see a person there. I want to see a well-rounded individual. And so most of the times I will make a note while I'm working with actors, I want to spend time with this person. And if I feel that, you're home free. There, so, and I think that speaks to what Tony was saying about education, about keeping yourself informed, reading, being the best possible human being that you can be. And I think that encompasses a lot. And I know we don't have any time left here to go into it, but I don't know. I don't know if I've answered that.
I think you have answered it,
Yeah.
and I do want to share with our audience. All three of us have master classes that you can view, I believe, right this minute. You can go over to BroadwayMentorsProgram.com and see the master classes that we've taught. And even better than that, you can book individual coaching sessions with us. If you're auditioning, if you just want some advice, if you want to work on a monologue, if you want to work on a song. I mean, come on, these two guys, I'm going to book a coaching with them right now. So I'm going to get off here right now.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask each of you, and,
Yeah.
and I will start by saying this. Did each of you have mentors? And I will say, early on, I had several, but the two biggest mentors for me were my acting teacher, Mary Strong, who is now just turned 94 years old, and we are still in contact, and my vocal coach since I was 19 years old, Professor Ann Perillo, who is still to this day, I am in contact with her and talk to her about things. And that's also part of this. We are paying it forward.
Yeah, definitely.
So talk about your mentors just for a brief second.
I'll be real quick with mine. I mean, I've had several, but the one that comes to mind immediately, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I went to the School for Creative and Performing Arts. And even before that, when I was 6 years old, I started dance classes with Jack Loiseau in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Jack went on to become the artistic director at the School for Creative and Performing Arts. And I wouldn't be singing if it hadn't been for Jack, because in my dance classes, he said to me, okay, you're going to sing. And I would sing in recitals, and that I wouldn't be sitting here right now if it hadn't been for all of the mentorship that he had given me. So that's mine. How about you, Howard?
Well,
I love you, Jack. Thank you for that.
That's so great. I love that you brought this up, Tony. Yes, I had a wonderful mentor in high school when I first started doing this, who cast me in as Joe Hardy in Damn Yankees, and then he cast a double cast show of She Loves Me, and he cast me as Kodai and as George Novak on alternate nights. So I was playing both the villain and the hero on alternate nights, and I ended up in the Broadway revival of She Loves Me in 1985. When was it? I can't even remember now. It's all running together. But the point is,
I saw you that too.
it was actually 1993. Yeah. But I mean, these people. So Marvin Hayes was a fantastic teacher of mine. He was a teacher at CalArts in Valencia, in LA. And I was living in California, so I studied with him. And Jeff Corey, who was a wonderful teacher for me. I could go on and on. It's amazing, the people who have touched my life. And Wilford Leach, who I must mention, who cast me in my first show in New York in La Boheme opposite Linda Ronstadt. Come on.
This makes me think, Anthony, quickly, and I'll use this to wrap up too, is that they used to say about auditioning, I think they still do, you audition, and you go and get in front of people, and it just takes one person to see you over and over, and that one person really sees you, and your whole life can change. And I think there's a big component of that in mentorship, and it's why I love this program, and why I think this is so vital, and why I hope so many of you that are watching today will take advantage of these fantastic mentors that are available to you, because being seen opens the universe to you, and it gives you courage, and it gives you strength to bring your genuine self into every moment that you live and breathe passion into the world as an artist. So I encourage you to explore the Broadway Mentors Program site. Look for these two fantastic gentlemen. Guys, I'm never going to forget this. I'm so grateful to you guys for sitting down with me. Anthony Crivello, Howard McGillen, thank you both so much. This has been the Broadway Mentors Program podcast. Bye, guys.
Love you guys.
Love you too.
Take care, everybody.
All love and respect.
Love and respect to you gentlemen, too. The Broadway Mentors Program podcast. We'll see you next time.